Hey guys, Toys for Life C5 here, and this is the C5 Corvette Buyer's Guide. The C5 was made for 8 years, and I can help you steer clear from the years with the most issues and gravitate towards the more desirable models. Additionally, I'll throw in some tips and tricks to evaluate condition, all of this in an effort to ensure that you don't have any buyer's remorse. I've owned a C5 Corvette for 6 years now. Prior to that, I researched them for 3 years. All in an effort to make sure I got the best car for my money. Here are the top 10 things to consider while hunting for your C5 Corvette. First, stay away from 1997 to 2000 models because the EBCM, which stands for Electronic Brake Control Module, has been out of production for many years now, and due to the way they were manufactured, the odds of finding a good one that's used or having one successfully repaired are very slim. The 2001 to 2004 EBCMs are also just recently out of production, but there's a larger supply of used ones, and because of the way they were made, they're much easier to repair should you have a problem. Just so you know, the EBCM is needed for the anti-lock brakes, active handling, and traction control to operate properly. Second, and this does not apply to automatic transmission cars, but if you are buying a 6-speed manual car, here's another great reason to avoid the 1997 to 2000 models. The 97 to 2000 manual transmission cars came with a weaker torque tube assembly. These models use a 55mm drive shaft with 10mm bolts and smaller rubber couplers. Late 2001 through 2004 cars got the larger, more durable Z06 63mm shaft, larger 12mm bolts, and a stronger rubber coupler. Third, and again this is another strike at the 99 to 2001 models, but there's a fairly well-known piston ring issue that caused excessive oil consumption and may have also contributed to piston slap. There's a GM technical service bulletin on this, and it goes something like this: 99 to 2001 Camaro, Firebird, and Corvette engines. Some owners that routinely drive at higher than 3,200 RPMs may experience excessive oil consumption to the tune of 1 quart per 400 to 600 miles. These owners that complained enough had their engines repaired by installing new piston rings. Now here's the thing: if the owner at the time didn't drive it up to past 3,000 RPMs, they never had the engine repaired, and as a current buyer now, you'd have no way of knowing this. The fourth thing to think about is that all 2001 and newer LS1s received the better breathing LS6 intake manifold, and most late 2001 and all 2002 and newer C5s received the LS6 block, which amongst other things allows for better high RPM windage and also provides for better oiling. It's hard to know for sure how many horsepower these changes equate to, as there were some other minor cam changes as well. But the 2000 and older Corvettes were rated at 345 horsepower and 350 foot-pounds of torque, while the 2001 through 2004 models bumped up to 350 horsepower and more significantly 375 foot-pounds of torque. Now guys, keep in mind the purpose of this buyer's guide is to help steer potential C5 buyers towards the more desirable C5 model years. And I think in topics number 1 through 4 that we've already talked about, I've made a case that the years 97 through 2001 are probably the least desirable C5s, and the 2002, 3, and 4 are the most desirable. In fact, the 2002 through 4, in my opinion, are probably the final product that GM envisioned for the C5. The fifth thing to think about is mileage. I would urge that you look for one with about 50,000 miles because they're about 20 years old. That equates to 2,500 miles a year, which is nothing. It's enough to make sure they drove it out, washed it a few times, had an oil change or two, and put it back away for the winter. I would steer away from cars with less than 30,000 miles. You're going to pay a pretty large premium for those. And there's no reason to go after cars with more than 70,000 miles, just simply because there's so many of them. Item number 6, and this is a big one. All C5 and 6 Corvettes have the battery in the passenger side rear part of the engine bay. Directly beneath the battery is the PCM, the brains of the car, and the main wiring harness. So Corvettes should be fitted with an AGM battery, which stands for Absorbed Glass Mat, which theoretically, if there's a compromise in the battery shell, it prevents lead acid from dripping all over beneath the battery onto the wiring harness and the computer, which will be a really bad day if that were to happen at some point in the car's history. So at a minimum, you're going to want to look deep as you can and see if you see any evidence of past corrosion. And if you look down there, you can see the computer. You also can remove the passenger side right front tire, and there is a little panel behind where the tire would go that allows you access to where the PCM is and the main wiring harness. Something you might want to inspect if at all in doubt before purchasing a C5. Maybe kind of a condition of purchase if you get that far. Item number 7, don't be cheap. Spend 35 to 40 bucks and get a Carfax. It'll show any accidents that it's been in over its long life. All the service history, since most of these owners had it serviced regularly at GM. You'll see all the service and the number of owners, the lower the better, and flood damage. For example, the Houston area, large floods and a lot of cars affected by that. Well worth the money, so get a Carfax. Item number 8, carefully evaluate every inch of the car. We're looking along all sides of the body panels for any signs of damage. The condition of the paint, has it been stored inside or out? Condition of the wheels, tires, and the brakes, and pay particular attention to the front and rear bumper covers for any signs of impacts. Interior, we're looking at the seats, steering wheel, door panels, carpets. Go over it with a fine-tooth comb. If you see any signs of damage, make sure you run. Don't walk away from the deal because there's too many nice ones out there. Item number 9 to check out carefully are electronics, and the C5 has no shortage of them. Don't be rushed by the owner of the car as you're checking it out. Make sure you take your time. Go through the normal things like most cars have: power seats, windows, door locks, mirrors. Moving to the inside, all of the radio controls, CD player, HVAC controls. Test out the air conditioning with the wipers, the windshield washer fluid pump. Cruise control when you're driving it, of course. All of the gauges, make sure they work. And let's move to a couple of Corvette specific functions. Number 1, you want to make sure that both headlights go up and down. Number 2, you're going to want to make sure that your heads-up display works, if so equipped. And number 3, you want to make sure the active handling works and competitive drive mode if you have that. And you'll want to test those items out as you're driving as well. Item number 10, the test drive. I like to take about a 15-minute test drive to go through the car's major systems on the road. If I don't find any issues or concerns, we return back to the owner's house or place of business and start the negotiations. Every deal is different, and the negotiations can take anywhere from 10 minutes to a couple of weeks. But I always make it clear that any sort of an agreement is conditioned upon a longer, up to about an hour test drive. Assuming you reach an agreement, the final test drive does need to be 45 minutes to an hour because it's your last chance to smoke out any problems with the car before you become the owner. So make sure you do multiple acceleration runs, emergency braking, go through the air conditioning, the cruise control, traction control, competitive driving, all of the electronics, and make sure that you really put the car through its paces, get it up to full operating temperature on multiple surfaces, rough roads, do a little swerving to check out the tightness of the suspension, and do everything that you might do condensed to about an hour's worth of a test drive to make sure any issues are revealed. And when you return from the test drive, after the car sits for 5 to 10 minutes, look underneath it for any puddles. At that point, if it passes, you've got yourself your new Corvette. Guys, I would be remiss if I did not bring up the elephant in the room, the Z06. Quite frankly, I do not recommend the Z06 for the first-time Corvette buyer because many of them have been modified and tracked through the years, and most would be better off with the standard C5 models. Hey guys, that does it for this video. If you liked the video, please hit the thumbs up and remember to subscribe. Thanks for watching.